As the years go by, I find myself increasingly in awe of how remarkably prolific the Super Nintendo Entertainment System was at the time. From action platformers to JRPGs to fighting games, puzzle games, and even graphically groundbreaking games like Star Fox and Donkey Kong Country, the Super Nintendo is truly one of the greatest video game consoles ever made with regards to its illustrious library that it had. And one of the things that the SNES did very well overall is when it came to racing games, it did not disappoint in its offerings. Two of the most popular racing titles alone, F-Zero and Mario Kart, began their lives on the SNES and went on to become some of the most popular Nintendo branded racers over time. But what about all those other racers that came out for the Super Nintendo? You know, those god-awful racing games that you only ended up renting from Blockbuster because it had such a badass game cover, or the ones that you took a chance on and they actually ended up being okay gaming experiences. The ones that may not have been perfect but pushed the technical capabilities of the Super Nintendo in ways that made us feel proud to own a Super Nintendo console. In keeping with our tradition of lesser-known game titles, here is a list of 10 racers that maybe you remember playing or have maybe never heard of. Now, as a disclaimer, not all of them are great on this list, but most are either titles that I think are interesting even though not perfect, or ones that I feel pushed the technical capabilities of the SNES that deserve to be remembered. So without further ado, here is a list of our top 10 SNES racers that we felt were worth mentioning. Subscribe to the Select Gaming to keep up to date with all our latest videos. This is 10 SNES racing games for you on the Select Gaming. Okay, so we are going to get the bad out of the way and start off with the lesser-known NASCAR racing title from Williams Entertainment, and it's Kyle Petty's No Fear Racing. And with that majestic mullet that Kyle is rocking, how could this not be a solid NASCAR game? Right? Kyle Petty's No Fear Racing offers the exciting world of NASCAR straight to your Super Nintendo Entertainment System. However, it's anything but that. The game tries to make an effort in pushing realistic graphics and an authentic NASCAR experience. There is a lot of emphasis in customizing your car as you embark in a career mode, but this is a challenging little NASCAR racing game, and it's due to the fact that it's not very forgiving, and even though the graphics were pretty impressive for the SNES at the time, the slow frame rate is something that will most certainly get on your nerves and may even hinder your driving performance. This game sits at number 10 on the list as a solid E for effort, specifically in the graphics department. In trying to create one of the very few realistic NASCAR racing games for the SNES, this game developed by Williams Entertainment does offer a ton of tracks and a fairly decent career mode if you're willing to put in the effort and get assimilated with the low frame rate of the game. At number 9, we got two games for the price of one. Kawasaki Caribbean Challenge, developed by Park Place Productions and published by Nintendo, is a Kawasaki branded game where you get to partake in a career mode as either a motorcycle driver or a jet ski driver. The game's simple yet effective top-down racing style offers a fun, arcade-like experience, especially when going head-to-head with other racers. However, with this one, the controls are a bit wonky with the D-pad. This is a game that would have felt a lot better with something like an arcade joystick with 8 points of access movement, and you'll probably find yourself sticking to the motorcycle career of the game rather than the jet ski career, as the Sea-Doo controls are a lot more difficult to master. But hey, it's two games for the price of one, and in 1993, that was a pretty sweet deal if I do say so myself. get ready to rev your engines and hit and run over some random cows that are getting in your way. Super Off-Road the Baja features a variety of customizable vehicles, including trucks and buggies, with each having unique attributes that affect handling and performance. The game takes place in the Baja California peninsula, and the graphics do a pretty decent job of reflecting that. I intentionally hit so many people in this game just for the lulz, and it is so not worth it because the more people or cows that you hit along the way, you lose thousands of dollars, and in this economy, better to save up that money for your engine upgrades after every rally. Graphically, you can see that it's pretty impressive for an SNES game, but it is a bit of a mess sometimes with certain textures, specifically in a level like the San Javier track. The textures blend into each other a bit too much and make it very difficult to see the track in the distance. The game's graphics work much better on a track like the first stage, where the variation in textures and colors make it much easier to navigate around the track. Now, it's not the greatest racer, but it is doing some very impressive things graphically that I did feel was worth mentioning. The controls are fairly decent and forgiving. This game is also an extension of the Super Off-Road series for the arcade, so it's a really interesting title for the SNES that expands on that already known arcade racer. Now, we've had a lot of cars and Sea-Doos and motorcycles in our previous titles mentioned, so we are going to switch it up with the mode of transportation on this one. Mountain Bike Rally, developed by Radical Entertainment for the SNES, sits at number 7. And you know Radical Entertainment, the makers of other known racing games such as The Simpsons Hit and Run. Well, we are going back in time to see what a racing game from them was like in 1994. Now, for some reason, this game strongly feels like it's from the same universe of the absolutely abysmal Street Hockey 95 for the SNES, which we did a playthrough on one of our Hatrix episodes that you should check out if you haven't seen that yet. And Mountain Bike Rally really reflects that in the character selection screen. It's got that 90s attitude with a variation of human characters meets alien hybrid characters to just downright weird characters. This game, once again, is not perfect, and it is flawed in many ways, but like in the previous games I mentioned, it is also doing some impressive things graphically in insinuating a 3D environment. The career mode is so-so. It does come with a lot of upgrades along the way for your bike, and it's also really fun that you get to sucker punch other racers as you pass them by. I thought that was a nice touch. Don't expect too much from a game like this, but it's a nice little time capsule of Radical Entertainment trying to push the limits of the Super Nintendo graphically. So here's a super weird one for you, a unicycle racer. That's right, they went and did it. Those crazy game developers at, wait, Nintendo? Nintendo is responsible for Uni Racers? This was a game whose box art I used to walk by and ignore almost every time at my local Blockbuster because I thought it just looked ridiculous. And it does look ridiculous, but it's actually kind of fun. Uni Racers for the SNES is like strapping a rocket to your unicycle and blasting off into a psychedelic world of high-speed racing madness. You control these little uni racers as they tear up the tracks with flips, spins, and turbo boosts. The game throws you into a whirlwind of loops and jumps and other crazy obstacles, and this one is all about speed. During your mid-air jumps, you get to pull off tricks and earn points from them, while your opponent eats your psychedelic uni racer dust. And a lot of these tracks just feel like something out of a Hot Wheels racing game. It's one of these hidden and obscure Nintendo-made racers that people forget that Nintendo made, and for that it's sitting at our number 6 spot as we give this underappreciated racer some love. Now buckle up because things are now going to get into some serious racing territory, and it's all thanks to our friends at Namco. At number 5, we are going pedal to the metal with the dystopian racer Battle Cars for the SNES. In Battle Cars, players are thrust into a dystopian landscape where vehicle racing warfare reigns supreme. Behind the wheel of heavily fortified vehicles, they traverse treacherous wastelands, engaging in pulse-pounding duels against rival drivers and monstrous adversaries. And it all comes with an arsenal of customizable weaponry at your disposal. Every encounter becomes a high-stakes battle for survival as you race. It's a game that sort of feels like if Twisted Metal was a racing game, it would pretty much feel like Battle Cars for the Super Nintendo. The racing style of the game also feels very similar to F-Zero, and this is a racing game where the graphics look and work so much better than the previously mentioned games, and it's most likely due to the utilization of the Mode 7 graphical feature that the SNES was capable of that offered more complex and dynamic camera movements. It's beautiful to look at, but the game's difficulty is very challenging. It's not so much a pick up and play game, but rather something that you really need to spend time mastering to make it through to the next level. It's garnered a very loyal following over the years and is remembered as one of the more dynamic and exciting racing games for the Super Nintendo. At number 4, we have the very popular and very multi-platform Super Off-Road for the Super Nintendo. Now, Super Off-Road is not an exclusive game for the SNES. It started its life out on the arcades and has had multiple versions of it across many other platforms. This version just so happens to be for the SNES, and it plays just like the arcade version that you know and love. Super Off-Road is a top-down racer with fast-paced action and addictive gameplay. This classic arcade racer is sure to rev your engines and keep you coming back for more with its minimal but engaging gameplay style. Remember those electric racetrack toys where you'd sit back, see the whole track, and just race your way around at your own speed? Well, this game sort of feels like that. It has a big toy factor to it. The bird's eye view of the track shows the scale of everything in front of you, and it makes it really easy to plan out your movement and plan out how you'll grab those pop-up items ahead of time before your opponents do. The simplicity of the game makes it really easy to pick up and play, and it's an even better game when you challenge a friend to go head-to-head as a second player. We are now in top 3 territory where we are going pedal to the metal with this one. Heavy metal, that is. Rock and Roll Racing from Interplay is one of the most iconic racing games for the Super Nintendo, and that is no mistake. In Rock and Roll Racing for the SNES, players are transported into a thrilling universe where racing meets rock and roll. Behind the wheel of futuristic vehicles, players navigate through dynamic tracks pulsating with energy and excitement. With a blend of intense competition and adrenaline-fueled action, every race becomes a symphony of speed and strategy. You'll notice from time to time some popular rock songs from the likes of Black Sabbath and Steppenwolf, and the game certainly lives up to its title. The isometric race tracks feel great overall, and the controls are easy and intuitive to get into. From the characters, race tracks, and music in the game, this is one where Interplay knocked it out of the park with style and substance. At number 2, we have one of the most technically advanced racers for the SNES that utilizes the famous Super FX chip technology. Dirt Trax FX, developed by Acclaim, is an arena dirt bike racing game that was way ahead of its time in terms of its look. The graphics in Dirt Trax FX are a standout feature, utilizing the Super FX chip to deliver vibrant landscapes and impressive 3D polygon graphics. Each environment is richly detailed and immersive, pushing the boundaries of what the SNES could achieve at the time visually. With dynamic camera angles and smooth animation, it's a standout title in the SNES library. I'd even go as so far to say that it looks like a game that could have even come across as a very minimal PS1 game, and that really speaks to how ahead of its time visually it was. It stuck with clean, flat textures that made it really easy to navigate around the tracks, and the frame rate is very solid and never suffers from any lag or issues. In Dirt Trax FX, the controls are a testament to intuitive design, offering players a seamless experience as they navigate the twists and turns of challenging tracks, where each new arena presents its own set of obstacles, creating a dynamic and exhilarating race every time. It's this blend of responsive controls and diverse landscapes that elevates the racing gameplay in a visually stunning arena racer. At number 1, we have the king of all the lesser-known racing titles for the Super Nintendo. Our victorious winner is Stunt Race FX, developed by Nintendo. This game is yet another example that utilizes the Super FX chip, and the game introduces players to a world of vibrant, three-dimensional environments that burst life onto the screen. In Stunt Race FX, the use of its graphics marks a significant leap forward, setting it apart from many other racing games of its time. The cars are meticulously crafted with smooth features and intricate textures, while dynamic camera angles and seamless animations transports players into the driver's seat of a high-speed racing experience. The controls are great on this one, and each of the 3 cars you can choose from at the menu screen offer their own style of racing and controls that make for some great dynamics that are not too repetitive. Overall, this is a racing game that is incredibly fun. It's even got these super fun mini-game interludes in between races that help offer some additional variety to the gameplay. My only real issue with this one is that it would have been a lot better if it could have come with more real estate for the racing screen, as it does feel very claustrophobic in this widescreen presentation of the gameplay, while the text at the bottom takes up a lot of space. But if you play it on a big screen TV, it will most certainly make up for it. Now, the main reason that this one sits at number 1 is that deep down, you can tell that it desperately wants to be a Nintendo 64 game. And with this racer specifically, it feels like a turning point for game design in the Nintendo brand. From the style to the music to the atmosphere of seeing Nintendo Superstar billboards all over the place, this was a prime example of Nintendo really wanting to showcase and push the capabilities of the Super FX chip in a racing game. This game in particular is something that feels like we were ready to usher in a new era of consoles, and it sort of feels like the SNES plateauing in a way where it made you excited about the future possibilities of games to come from the new era of Nintendo consoles. So how did we do? Were we spot on, or did we miss any other lesser-known titles for the Super Nintendo that should have made the list? Let us know in the comments, and kudos for making it all the way to number 1 on this top 10 video. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Select Gaming. If you like what you've seen and heard, give us a like and subscribe. This is Dusty Maxwell, and we'll see you on the next one.